So can you help us understand where in those early days after 9/11 the administration placed Iraq in the strategy for responding to the attack?
Certainly. Let me start with the period in which you're trying to figure out who did this to you. And I think given our exceedingly hostile relationship with Iraq at the time, this is, after all, a place that had tried to assassinate an American president, was still shooting at our planes in the no-fly zone. It was a reasonable question to ask whether indeed Iraq might have been behind this. I remember later on in a conversation with Prime Minister Blair, President Bush also said that he wondered, could it have been Iran, because the attack was so sophisticated. Was this really just a network that had done this? When we got to Camp David, and let me just be very clear, in the days between September 11th and getting to Camp David, I was with the President a lot. I know what was on his mind. What was on his mind was follow-on attacks, trying to reassure the American people. He virtually badgered poor Larry Lindsey about when could we get Wall Street back up and running, because he didn't want them to have succeeded against our financial system. We were concerned about air security, and he worked very hard on trying to get particularly Reagan reopened. So there was a lot on our minds. But by the time that we got to Camp David and began to plan for what we would do in response, what was rolled out on the table was Afghanistan, a map of Afghanistan. And I will tell you, that was a daunting enough task to figure out how to avoid some of the pitfalls that great powers had had in Afghanistan, most recently the Soviet Union and, of course, the British before that. There was a discussion of Iraq. I think it was raised by Don Rumsfeld. It was pressed a bit by Paul Wolfowitz. Given that this was a global war on terror, should we look not just at Afghanistan, but should we look at doing something against Iraq? There was a discussion of that. The President listened to all of his advisors. I can tell you that when he went around the table and asked his advisors what he should do, not a single one of his principal advisors advised doing anything against Iraq. It was all to Afghanistan. When I got back to the White House with the President, he laid out for me what he wanted to do. And one of the points, after a long list of things about Afghanistan, a long list of things about protecting the homeland, the President said that he wanted contingency plans against Iraq should Iraq act against our interests. There was a kind of concern that they might try and take advantage of us in that period. We were still flying no-fly zones, and there was also, he said, in case we find that they were behind 9/11, we should have contingency plans. But this was not along the lines of what later was discussed about Iraq, which was how to deal with Iraq on a grand scale. This was really about it. We went to planning Afghanistan. You can look at what we did. From that time on, this was about Afghanistan.
So when